right.
All right, it's great to see everyone again. It's Dustin from just outside Kansas City, Missouri. I'm joined by the fantastic Rachelle Poth just outside of Pittsburgh. And it's a rainy day in her neck of the woods, and it's actually sunny here. So Rachelle, thank you so much for coming on. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for the offer and the invitation to join you today. So I'm looking forward to having a conversation.
Absolutely. So go ahead and tell a little bit of background information about you. So where you teach, what grades you teach, and just, who you are as an educator.
Well, I currently teach Spanish and STEAM. It's like a course for eighth graders, but I've also taught French, and I teach at Riverview High School, which is in Oakmont. It's probably 10 miles from Pittsburgh. I've been there for a long time. I just started to say a long time because it's been so many years that I kind of lose track. But yeah, so I teach full time. I'm also a consultant, an attorney, an author, just love learning and everything about education. So always happy to talk about education or get involved in some type of a conversation about learning.
Absolutely fantastic. And you have a lot of stuff on your resume. You mentioned you teach, different classes with French, Spanish, STEAM, you're consulting, you're an author and an attorney. That's a very impressive resume. And so we're going to try and talk about several of those things today. So for people who are unfamiliar, what is STEAM and ISTE?
Okay, so STEAM, like STEM education. So anybody, if you've done STEM, so science, technology, engineering, and math, and then with the STEAM, the A for arts, of course, there have been variations on STEAM and there's even STREAM, but my course came to be, and people are always asking how a Spanish teacher is teaching things like augmented virtual reality, artificial intelligence. But a couple of years ago, my school received a grant and changed and did a lot of remodeling from our library to make it more of a makerspace. And with that, they were bringing STEAM into the curriculum. And so teaching Spanish and French, being the arts, I was asked to teach a course. And so that's kind of how I got started with that part of what I do. ISTE is the International Society for Technology and Education. And so it's an international organization for educators. There's a lot of different professional learning networks within it. There's a conference that happens every year, but it's really a great space for educators to learn more about bringing technology into the classroom. A lot of the different networks offer so many webinars and Twitter chats and resources for people to really learn more about what's happening out there, especially when it comes to, obviously, ed tech.
Fantastic. So I want to go back to STEAM. So if you can think back to maybe 5 or 6 years ago, how has this discipline grown in that span of time? Because from where I'm at, I teach at a very suburban high school. I grew up in a very suburban area. And so I remember when I was in school years ago, that wasn't a thing, but now it's really exploded onto the scene. So how has it grown in the past several years as an educator?
Yeah, it's interesting because years ago, I mean, even for myself as a Spanish teacher, I was using technology in my classroom, just digital tools for learning, but I wasn't doing that like on a regular basis, or I wouldn't think that any STEM or STEAM curriculum had any applicability in my courses that I was teaching. But in the last couple of years, I've really seen it grow from not just in the high school, at the high school level, I should say, but even elementary schools, just all different content areas, grade levels, really bringing in opportunities for students to build skills in STEM or STEAM or having maker spaces. So it's definitely grown in the last couple of years, even in the past year. Just tremendous growth and seeing some of the statistics that are out there and a lot of the things that are available for educators to bring into their classrooms, even for families to do at home as well, to kind of learn about it together.
Fantastic. So you talk about skills that students are developing. What are these skills that they're developing? Is it problem solving? Is it collaboration? What are these skills that they're developing?
Yeah, you hit on two of them for sure. Problem solving, collaboration, creativity, and even just, higher level, like applying what they're learning at different levels. And the biggest piece is for a lot of students, that fear of failure and not knowing the answers. What I've seen, at least in my classes, when they're doing some different challenges or working through some of the different components of the course that I teach, helping them to get past that I don't know, or, you know, feel like, okay, I can't figure this out, and to experience that productive struggle and reach out to their classmates or to me, of course, but it's always good for them to build those relationships together. So kind of a lot of different skills that they're building in addition to social emotional learning skills, because they're working together with their peers. So it really does offer a lot for teachers, for students, whenever you bring some of these different concepts or just experiences related to STEM or STEAM into your classroom.
Fantastic. So you talk about those moments where students don't know, and that can be a very challenging thing to them. So how do you coach them along? You know, you want to give them that confidence and you want to guide them, but you don't want to hold their hand all the way through. You want to give them the tools to problem solve it. How do you coach them along in that process?
Yeah, that is not something that I was always really good at. Just in the last couple of years, I've really focused more on helping them to get through that. And like you say, coaching them, because for me as a student, I mean, years ago, that was uncomfortable when you're called on, you don't know the answer, or you're afraid to say something if you're not sure about it. And just being with your peers, it is an uncomfortable feeling. And it wasn't until I went to law school years ago that I had that experience of being a student again and being uncomfortable and not knowing the answer, and kind of having that just, you know, you have all those feelings going and just shut down. And for some of my students over the years, I could see whenever I would call on them, and you could just see on their face that they didn't want to answer, or they would just say, I don't know, I have no idea, I'm going to get it wrong, pick on somebody else. And in some cases, I would kind of let them get away with that, because I could think back to my experience of how uncomfortable that was with everybody's looking at you for the answer. But then I realized that's not going to help them now, obviously, or later on in life. And so what do we do about it? So one, modeling for them, like, I make mistakes all the time. You know, I'm wrong about things all the time. Sharing my story with them about when I was in geometry or law school and the grades that I got and how uncomfortable it was, but just trying to find ways to kind of share with them what our experiences were and encourage them along the way and not let them give up. Because I told some of my students, said, hey, I had a teacher in law school that spent 3 hours of class waiting for me to come up with an answer. I said, I have incredible wait time, but that again is not something I always did. I would kind of let them get away with it. But now I try to work with them just based on my own experiences with that same thing.
Absolutely. And just the fact that, you know, I tell my students as well, I know a lot of answers, but I don't know every answer. And, you know, like you, I kind of tell those stories. You know, I remember when I was in college, it was a senior seminar class where we had to, the entire class was where you just had to write an essay. And mine was maybe 30, 40 pages or whatever. And so periodically you would have to get it reviewed. And me and another classmate, you know, we thought where we were going was really good. And it turned out he closed the door and just cursed us out for a handful of minutes. So, you know, obviously we're not doing that, but, you know, it kind of lets the students know, hey, you know, we have faced adversity as well. We still are, but we can problem solve and get through this together. So I think it's great that the fact that you're being vulnerable with them as well, because that's a vulnerable moment for them as well.
Yeah, and the vulnerability piece is not something that I was always really good at either until a couple of years ago when I read Brene Brown, and there was a quote in there about vulnerability, and it really resonated with me. And so that is definitely something that I keep in mind within my, I mean, every day for myself, just sharing more of my experiences, because that's how students connect, or just even your colleagues and PLN and friends, is you never know what somebody is experiencing. And then if you share your story, it might just be something that they need that's going to help them to kind of move forward. So that's what I keep in the back of my mind, even in myself as an adult, you know, as well. It's like, there are times when we come up against something, you think like, I just can't do this. And you just want to quit, but we can't, because that's not a good model to set for students or colleagues or anybody. So.
You know, absolutely. And so how has that helped you build those relationships and kind of build that classroom culture where you're able to, again, be vulnerable? You know, I know with my class, you know, in my classes, my students, you know, feel more open. They feel more, as if they can come to me when they have concerns or worries. So how has that helped you as an educator?
Yeah, that is something that has really made a huge difference over the last probably 6 years now. Just when I started to, because I wasn't focused on relationships. And that is another thing I learned in law school. I was teaching the way I was taught. I was every day like, here's our lesson. This is what we have to do. Don't ask me any personal questions. Let's just get through this content and I'll see you tomorrow. But then I started to notice that, there was the student engagement was low and the motivation, and there was something kind of just missing. And then of course, my law school experience, I realized from teachers there, like, you need to share your stories, you need to connect it and let the students know that you've been through some similar experiences. And so that has made, once I started to kind of be more open to that, which again, for me, that was uncomfortable for a long time because that was not who I was. And I wasn't comfortable with sharing too much. But when I started to have those conversations with students, they were more receptive to me, to the class, of course, to each other. And it really did change the way that my classroom was. The space was very comfortable. Students were commenting about how much more they were enjoying class. They felt more connected. One student even said one time, I feel like this is like a learning family, and it's okay if I make mistakes. It's okay if I do something that's silly or whatever. I feel supported in this space. And hearing that come from them made a huge difference. And just the connections I've been able to make with them over the last 6 years has really helped me. I mean, personally, of course, just my own growth, but also professionally, what I've learned from them and what they've shared with me have really helped me to change as an educator.
Fantastic. I love it. I love the fact how, you're just being so reflective about it. That's what I was doing it was working, but it wasn't where I really 100% wanted. And just the fact that you're able to realize that and make those changes and make your class that much better and make you an even better educator. So one of the things with STEAM is that you're doing a lot of complex problems. You're doing a lot of real world examples. So how do you build that engagement to students, and how do you check that how do you monitor that they're learning? I know it's a pretty broad question, but since you're doing such, complex things, and even foreign language as well, how do you engage them into it? And how do you check and make sure they're learning?
Yeah, that's, you're hitting on all the things that I was wrong about for so many years. Student engagement was another one. I thought I knew what student engagement was, and I was totally wrong about that, which made it understandable why the students weren't engaged. And I couldn't figure out like what I was doing wrong. And so just simple things that I changed, for example, in my classroom, I moved the desks out of rows, and I started to use things like stations and choice boards and hyperdocs in all of my classes, but giving students more of a choice. Also asking them, okay, here's some choices. Which one, how do you like to learn? What are some of the ways that you practice? What works for you? What doesn't work for you? And really being open to their ideas. But then even with the STEAM course that I teach, we do cover a lot of different topics and giving them a lot of choices. So it's fun for me. But one thing about it is I don't know all the answers. And you said before, like, I know a lot of things. I don't know everything. And a lot of times they'll ask me questions and I'll say, there's a really good answer for that. And that's because I don't know what it is. And I hope that they figure it out and teach me. So it's little things like that along the way. And also just concepts, things like project-based learning and giving students a chance to kind of explore, or Genius Hour is something else that has worked really well. And then asking them, what are you learning? Why are you interested in that? Okay, what are your next steps? And just being open to some ideas. Now, sometimes it goes really well, but initially for a lot of students, when they have that kind of independence where they choose whatever they're going to decide to study, that's uncomfortable too, because for so long, they're kind of given a direction to go in. And whenever you say, you pick, I don't know, whatever you want to do, it's on both sides. It's uncomfortable for them, but for the teacher thinking, okay, how do I hold them accountable? How do I assess them? How do I, let them go in their own way and give them the independence, but also be able to check on them. So it's not something that happened overnight for me at all. There were definitely challenges along the way, but from when I thought I understood student engagement years ago and kind of worked through and understood it better by doing some of those things, definitely have a better understanding of what it is now. So
Absolutely. And I tell people that, you know, is to go in baby steps. You know, don't go like when you're giving students choice, this is a great thing because we're giving the power to our students. And that's tough for a teacher because we're used to holding all that power. And yes, we still maintain that, but we're giving that option to students. And so once students really see how they learn best, you know, that engagement is really going to be fantastic. And so when they understand that and we kind of give that to them in small steps, that transition can be that much easier. If we did it, you know, a complete 180, it may be pretty difficult. So one of the things with ISTE and using instructional technology is that there are tons and tons and tons of tools out there for teachers. That's a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing. I know you use Buncee, Microsoft, you use a lot of different tools that really get students involved and really, you know, creates a lot of dynamic lessons. So with that being said, how much is too much technology in the classroom? We know it's very important and it's a part of my classroom, but how much is too much?
Yeah, that's a great question, especially now with so many schools being they're hybrid or fully distance and figuring out. And again, I mean, there's a ton of tools, and it's overwhelming to figure out, you know, which one to pick out of all of them. And there are some that are definitely my go-tos, and I typically go to those ones like you mentioned, Buncee, Nearpod is another one, Flipgrid. I mean, there's a couple that we tend to use because they offer so many different ways to bring them into the classroom. And what I like about them is that students, I mean, if students like technology, hate technology, anywhere in between, or depending on their experience with it, same with teachers. I mean, all of them offer something for everybody. So you can do as little or as much as you want with them. And when it comes to technology, I mean, finding the balance and always focusing on the purpose, like what is this going to help me do better for my students? What is it going to do for them in terms of opportunities? And so when I think about things like, I mean, for me, years ago, when I started to use more technology, I thought about what are the problems that I'm seeing in my classroom? And I noticed that it was a disconnect. And that was because students would come to ask questions after school and I was in a meeting, or if they were absent, then they would come in when I was teaching and like, did I miss anything? And I couldn't give them the time that they deserved. And so I tried to find ways where I could be available or I could provide that for them. And so I think, you know, whenever we use technology, I mean, for example, I used Edmodo years ago and I used a messaging app called Selly that was around at the time, and now we use Remind. But having some things in place and then having some different tools that we can kind of pull in at different times, especially now, like we can't, I mean, for my school, we're distance learning. And so obviously we're using a lot of technology because we're meeting online, but I also, it's important for students and teachers to be away from the screen. And so giving students like hands-on things to do, but whatever, I mean, whatever works for me is not necessarily going to work for somebody else. And I think analyzing like, what is the purpose for it? Is it something that is going to save me time? So instead I can go and I can have conversations with students instead of sitting and going through a lot of different papers to grade, for example. Things like that. I mean, that is purposeful because I can get the feedback, I can give it to students, we can move on, or I can change my lesson based on that. But I think if you feel overwhelmed because you're bringing in so many tools, then students and families, of course, at this time are going to also be overwhelmed. So it's all about the balance in everything, I think, right? Teaching life every day.
Absolutely. And just like you said, what may work for your class may not work, you know, for my class. I remember when I started student teaching, we used Edmodo. And for those that are unfamiliar with it, it's kind of like Facebook, but for your class. And so you would put your materials on there, and it was what Google Classroom was before Google Classroom. And then Google Classroom came and that made it much more efficient. So I know for me, Classroom is that foundational background. You know, as a coach, you use Remind. You know, it's great to send out those text alerts and parents get it right on their phone. They don't have to dig through their email that they may never check, but they get the message and it shows you, you know, that they view that message. And so, you know, using Google Forms, you know, when you're having some sort of assessment, that will save you so much more time on grading. You can spend that time giving feedback and just utilizing the right tools for your class. Nearpod, one of my good friends, Michelle Moore, down in Tampa, who I've interviewed, works for Nearpod. And that's something I would really love to bring for our students, just because that customizable learning that students can use with that quick feedback. So again, there's just a lot of tools out there.
Yeah, there definitely are a ton in, and I know Michelle really well just
Hmm.
through, I mean, other connections and also with Nearpod too. But it is something that a lot of teachers, I mean, there's never enough time, right? We're constantly doing things and finding time to learn about new tools. That's one of the things that I've noticed so much about so many of the tools that are out there. It's like there's not a big learning curve, and there's so much that's already available that you don't have to start from scratch or to create. There's lessons, there's examples, people, educators willing to help you, provide support and answer questions, and just finding one to start with and trying it out. And if it goes great, great. And if it doesn't, then there's plenty more out there. But especially finding something that does offer a lot. Nearpod is one, just because of the virtual reality tours that are in it. For me as a language teacher, when my students say, hey, let's go to Spain or Mexico, and it's like, we can't actually do that right now, but to be able to kind of do that with Nearpod and have those VR tours in there, or to look at objects and to ask questions about different places in the world and to really increase their awareness. I mean, there are so many benefits when you can bring in tools like that that are so, I mean, full of options.
Absolutely, absolutely, and very well said. I want to switch gears, and you've mentioned a couple times before that you have a law degree. Now, I've never met a teacher that has a law degree. My mom is a retired educator, and this is my 7th year teaching. So what inspired you to get a law degree? Are you also a practicing attorney on some days? How does that work for you?
Yeah, it's a lot of people think that I was an attorney first and then became a teacher, but it's actually the opposite. My undergrad degree was in secondary education and French, and when I graduated, I couldn't find a job teaching. So somebody suggested you should go get another certification, and the one that was suggested was actually history. And I said, I don't know that I could do that. So I was interested in languages. I got the certification in Spanish, and at the time, I was also becoming certified to be a translator. And that's where the interest kind of came in, because we were doing legal translation. I also enjoyed reading John Grisham novels years ago. And so just in my mind, I thought about it. I was interested in it, but never pursued it. Considered possibly going and becoming a paralegal just over the summer, one year, kind of forgot about it. And then many years ago, I thought about it again. I wonder if I could apply to law school. I wonder if I would be a good attorney, or if I would enjoy it, or anything like that. And so I took the test, took the exam, and got the score, had no idea what it meant, and then just decided to apply. And now in Pittsburgh, there's 2 schools. There's Pitt and Duquesne. And Duquesne offered an evening program, which for me, teaching full time, I couldn't afford to quit teaching, nor did I do it to get out of teaching either, which is a personal reason why I wanted to pursue it. So I applied, was accepted, and it was a 4-year, 4-night-a-week program. And so I did graduate and pass the bar again years ago. It's amazing how much time has passed, but I've always said I don't think that I would still be teaching had it not been for that experience, because of just the personal growth that I how I changed myself, confidence, the connections that I made, just what I understood about being a student, like placed in that situation again. And then the other thing about being a mentor and the relationships between teachers and students and why that's important. So a lot of takeaways from it. And as far as practicing, my main area was going to be criminal law, but with still teaching full time, that didn't actually work with the schedule. So I do still keep up my license, and it helps with my consulting work that I do, whether I draw up agreements. I did some work on the side for years, just kind of writing wills and things like that. But otherwise, it's, I don't know. I'm thankful to have it, because I know that I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now had it not been for that experience. But yeah, it's always an interesting story to talk about the law degree.
Absolutely. So do people kind of look at you since you have that law degree and you have that ability to, present that in a courtroom, do they look at you to impact policy and education, or when it comes, or consulting, I'm sure people kind of view you a little bit different because, hey, you have a law degree as well. Can you help us with this? So do people also view you as that?
Yeah. Yeah, I get a lot of questions and sometimes concerns because I do have my law degree. Reading over an agreement from somebody, it's like, oh, don't judge, and I said, don't worry about it. Like, I'm not judging. It's not that I'm practicing all the time, but it does definitely come in handy. I mean, as a consultant, putting agreements together. But it's funny with my students even asking about, what are you doing teaching? And it's like, I love teaching. And they're like, why did you go to law school? And I said, because I was interested in it. Well, why aren't you practicing law? And I said, well, I kind of am. It's not a full-time thing, but it's just the love of learning and, keep pushing yourselves and trying different things. And it doesn't, I don't know, there's so many benefits that I've had from it, but it's also made for interesting conversations in the classroom too, when there's an accident, something happens in the room, and I've had students say, oh, I didn't do it, or it was an accident. And I can, because I took a forensics course, I can look at, what's laying there on the floor, and I can tell that the crayon didn't just fall and get ground into the floor, that it was actually, dropped. And then instead of somebody picking it up, they dragged their foot across it to get it. So it comes in handy in a lot of different ways. I do get a lot of questions asking me to look over documents. And then even with a policy, like you mentioned too, a school law, a lot of times I'm asked about the legalities of different things that are happening. And, I know a lot of things, but I don't know all of the things, especially a lot of times the questions come from people in different states. And so with Pennsylvania, I mean, some things are completely different. So it's definitely a good conversation, and always take those questions. Every week I get a couple different questions, so I don't mind at all.
Absolutely. And that's great that, you use it kind of as a classroom discussion. You can have fun with it. You can relate to students, and just the fact of that love of learning. I'm like you. I love to learn, reading and just soaking up any sort of knowledge. And like med school, like law school, you really want to push your boundaries. That's a great way to do it, is to go down that avenue. So again, it's serving you great as an educator, and also helping out people in other states as well.
Yeah, definitely. I enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. So some of the books that you've written In the Other Word, Unconventional Ways to Thrive in EDU, and The Future is Now. So when you have written these books, what was the primary motivation? Were you wanting to inspire other teachers to try new things? Were you wanting to share some of that knowledge? What was that primary motivation writing those texts and continuing to write to this day?
Yeah, well, it's kind of funny because when I was 18, I thought about writing a book way back then, and I even started writing after reading some different books like John Grisham, and there were certain authors, and I thought, oh, I can totally write a book. And then push that aside. That notebook still exists somewhere today, but never really thought about writing. And then I started to do some blogging and was just sharing things I was doing in my classroom. And I really enjoyed it because I would get feedback from other teachers that said, I was looking for an idea and I read your experience and I tried it and it worked really well for me. Or I was looking for ideas and I read your ideas and I tried it and it didn't work well. But after that, I found something else. And so I really enjoyed sharing what we were doing in my classroom. And then when it came to the books, actually somebody approached me about writing a book. And I said, I don't know what I would write about. And they said, you've written so many different blogs over the years. You're just writing about, what you're doing in your classroom, ideas for teachers. So I said, okay. And it ended up being that there were a couple other conversations that happened. And one night I decided to get my notes from books that I had read over the years about education and technology and just anything. And as I was going through it, I noticed that, I had tons of notes from these books, but a lot of the things that I had written were quotes. So that night I thought, I wonder if I could write a book about quotes, that this is the quote and this is how it helps me to think or reflect about what I'm doing in my classroom or just life. And then here's what other people think about it too. And so that's where what came to be my first book that came out. In other words, it was supposed to be quotes that push us to rethink education. But then after I put it all together, I realized it could be read by anybody. And so now it's just quotes that push our thinking. And so with that book, I had some guest chapters and some vignettes from educators, and even two of my students co-wrote a chapter, and a student designed the cover too, which I thought was fantastic. But being able to share, I mean, we know there's so much power in stories and hearing the stories of others. And we don't know, I mean, for me, I was isolated for so many years, and that was a choice that I made. But now, all of the different connections I made, I can't imagine like where I would be without all of these connections, especially what opportunities it's brought for my students. And so being able to put that together in a book and share all of these stories that hopefully lead teachers to really reflect on what they're doing or find some inspiration. You know, I mean, there's a lot of challenges out there that we're all experiencing. And so hopefully it kind of it's a good read for people. And then the other books, same thing. The unconventional book is a lot of different ideas. And my hope is that it doesn't take anybody who's looking, if they want augmented virtual reality, project-based learning, social emotional learning, that with all of the resources and tools that are out there and not enough time to kind of go through and sort through them, my hope is that anybody could pick up the book and find an idea and get started with it right away and not have to take all that time or, you know, figure out where do I start, for example. And so with all of these books, like I just enjoy sharing ideas. So hopefully it gives somebody an idea or helps somebody through maybe a frustration that they're experiencing. And I don't know, it's fun to gather those stories. So it's been a lot of writing over the last couple of years, and I'm looking forward to even more and more stories to share.
You know, it's fun to just share. You know, one of the things that, you know, I love about teaching is just being that teammate. You know, I tell people, and it may sound cheesy, that all us educators, we're all one big school. And the fact that, you know, we can take that time to share, whether it's on a blog, you know, with my blog, which unfortunately with school starting, coaching, I haven't been able to devote as much time to, but share those lesson ideas, share those SEL strategy, and just share, because we all want each of us to succeed and do well. And so I think it's wonderful. I am writing the framework to accommodating students with various learning needs, you know, in the special education realm, and also the framework for an SEL book. So again, if I can have an impact on another educator using, you know, a strategy or two or the whole thing, then I think that's absolutely tremendous.
Yeah, that's awesome that you're writing that. And those are, I mean, really important areas,
Mm-hmm.
obviously now, but it's exciting, but it's also stressful
Oh
to
yeah,
have to
absolutely.
write and to think about putting it together in the edits. And I tell you what, nothing is ever perfect. Even with my books, I can't tell you how many times, how many hours just writing and reading, having people read through them. And there's always mistakes. I mean, even in law school, just the law school books, you're focusing on whatever the case is, and there's a typo. I mean, it just happens. But it's a lot of pressure in writing a book. But the thing that I love about what you said too is, I mean, even if just one person, like it might just be that one person that's ready to give up or quit. Or, I mean, I've had teachers come to me and say, you know what, I'm not fit for this. I don't think I belong in teaching. I'm too different, or I'm weird. Sometimes they even say, and I'm like, that's good. It's okay. We're all different. I mean, just having somebody to share those stories with, and, you know, my own experience sharing with one person, you never know. It might just be the one thing that's going to change the trajectory, if I could say it, of where
Right.
they were headed before they give up.
Absolutely. So we have connected via Twitter, and I participated and hosted a couple formative chats. We're having this discussion right here. I've submitted to your blog as well. So as you know, social media can be a very powerful tool to connect with other educators, and it can be very effective. So how has social media helped you grow and impact other teachers really all over the world?
Yeah, that's another thing that Rachelle was wrong about for so many years. I actually wrote a series of, I think, 6 or 7 blogs about how I was wrong about social media, and I listed all of them, you know, Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn, and just kept going. But Yeah, for years. I mean, even Facebook, I didn't understand it. I didn't want a Facebook account. I thought, what am I going to use this for? And the same thing with Twitter. I thought it was just celebrities, politics, whatever. And it wasn't until somebody said to me for Facebook, planning a high school reunion, and I laugh about this every time I tell it, but they said, how are you going to contact all of our classmates? I said, well, looking in the phone book. And they said, you're not going to find 600 people in a phone book. People don't even have a phone book anymore. You need Facebook. And so when I created that account, that's been years since I did that, I found a lot of classmates right away. So it was great to connect with classmates, but also with, high school friends, elementary school friends, family. And then even with Twitter, I didn't, again, understand it. I think I had an account for years. I never really used it. But then it was 2014, I went to, in Pennsylvania, they had this program where principals could nominate teachers for this Keystone Technology Innovator Program. And you would go to this week-long summit and basically, learn a lot about technology and integration and integrating technology, I should say. And they had Twitter. And so I created the account and just started to build connections. And over the last 6 years now, I mean, it's amazing the people that I've met. A lot of people that I still have not met, and you can relate to face to face, but when you do connect in those spaces and you meet face to face for the first time, it's like you feel like you've known them for years, and it's such a great connection that you have in a relationship. But being able to ask for help, support, ideas at any time and have people respond to you, that's unlike anything that existed for many of my first years of teaching. And so the concept of a PLN or being a connected educator was, I mean, local school districts, teachers in your building, not so much like it is now. And finding help, especially in my classroom, staying isolated, I didn't have those options back then. But now I tell people, like, don't stay isolated, and you don't have to pick all of them. There are so many different forms that in itself becomes overwhelming. So find a group on Twitter, join in a chat. And it's not just about us. I mean, it's about our students or our colleagues, or if we're administrators, the people that we're working with and leading, the things and the opportunities that we can bring in to support them is what it's about too. So us and everybody else.
Absolutely. And like I have a Facebook page that's just more personal. But like my Twitter, years ago, I started in college. I didn't really use it for education purposes. It was just kind of more seeing what my friends were doing, and I just decided I wanted more out of it, and I wanted to connect and I wanted to grow both, as an educator and as a person. So really about a year ago, I took that leap and just started participating, and it's so reassuring to know that there are thousands of educators, if not millions, that want to help, that want to hear about you, that want to hear how you are doing in the classroom, that want to help you become a better teacher. And so there's such a large support out there that even if you're in a situation where you may not get that support, in your building, which is unfortunate, but there is a large group of people that are ready to help you and be there as well. It's been a tremendous PD tool as well. So I can't speak enough positive things about how social media has really impacted, the We Are One team, and just how I go about being a special educator. I'm pursuing my doctorate in January of 21 and just growing as a leader as well.
Yeah, I love the part about the PD. I mean, it really is PD whenever, right? You
Right.
can just sit down for 30 minutes in a chat and you can walk away with so many ideas. Or even if you don't have the 30 minutes and to be engaged in it live, to go back and just to read through and see what the questions are, what are the resources that are shared. It's just nice to have that as one of the options available to us, especially now whenever we can't necessarily be in the same physical spaces or go to the conferences and things like that we're used to doing, to have that available at any time and whatever fits our schedule.
Absolutely. So last area I want to get to is 2020, 2021. Now at my school, we're on a hybrid schedule. So we see half of our kids every other day. We have a virtual day. So how is your school prepared for the 2021 school year? And what are you doing to prepare for your students, or what have you done to prepare?
Yeah, it's we were going to start hybrid and then it changed. So for the first 9 weeks, we're fully distanced. And we've had 2 weeks in. And so Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, students, it's synchronous lessons. So they're, I mean, the normal class schedule. And then Wednesday is asynchronous. And, you know, we're using Microsoft Teams and teaching and recording portions of our lessons to be available for students just to go back and look at. It's exhausting regardless of, I mean, however you're teaching in general is just exhausting, but even more so now, just I think because of online and trying to figure out the best ways to do all of the things that you might want to do in your physical classroom. And that's an area that I really found to be challenging for me when schools closed in the spring, because I can do so much in the 42 minutes. I mean, there's all of these different, you know, you can do so many activities, different tools in the classroom, understand, like have conversations with every student, understand where they are in learning, assess them, you name it. And then they leave, and 42 minutes and 20 kids in the class, you've got it all taken care of. But not the same thing in the virtual space. And I was trying to do all of those same things initially back in the spring, realizing I can't. And the 42 minutes was then taking like 3 hours or 4 hours in all the planning. And so that really did help me to plan for now, thinking back to then. But I will say that when the year started, I did find myself kind of pulled back into that same mindset of, okay, this is what I would do in the normal start of the school year. And realizing I can't do all of those same things. Okay, what is the most important? What is going to be the best for my students? Also to get them away from the screen a little bit. And the first week was tough. It was, I don't know. It was really, really hard and exhausting. But once I kind of took time to look over what I had done, and then the second week definitely went better. But just using some different tools, giving students an opportunity to kind of get away from the screen, some of the other tools we mentioned earlier, and still a work in progress for sure, figuring out like assessments, how to do that. You know, I don't know, there are a lot of things to consider.
There definitely is, and I can think back to March whenever we were let out. We were let out going into spring break, so we kind of had a week to unwind a little bit, to prepare for the madness. And our school really did a tremendous job just planning and supporting each other. And I remember those first few days, I was working till 7, 8 o'clock at night. I'm like, and I just kind of said, time out, you know, this isn't going to work. I was going to burn myself out. So, and I also had it in my mind of the stuff I wanted my students to do. And I had to dial that back significantly. And as the weeks went on, it got much, much easier. And so going into this year, you know, our students are virtual 3 days a week. And so we know we know what they can handle, and we know we're not going to overload them. It's going to be more enhancement of what we've covered in the class, checking in on them, some sort of learning that we're going to continue. And so, you know, and like we've said, you know, we were building the plane as we're flying it. So it took a little trial and error, but you know, we've really found what we need to do going into this year.
Yeah, definitely building the plane as we're flying it. It's just hearing all of the different stories from everybody, just even in the last couple of weeks. I mean, you can still see there's so much frustration, and but there's also so much support that's there, just in all the different, whether it's Facebook or Twitter, different communities, and being able to talk and connect to somebody that's experiencing the same thing, or to give them the support to say, like, here's some ideas, like, it's okay, you know, breathe. But yeah, it's the word interesting has become the most commonly used word by me, I think, in the last couple of weeks, and other people that I've talked to too. I said, because how else do you describe it? It's the word. And then I almost said interesting, and then I said, it's different. Yeah. So interesting and different, but yeah, we make the best of it and do our best and learn each day and improve on. And that's all that we can do.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. It is very interesting. You know, it's been very quiet at our building, even when we have half of our students. But it's good to be back. It's good to see them. It's good to connect and really get that learning going. So second to last question I want to ask you is, you know, I created We Are One Team. So when you see that, what does that mean to you?
It means it doesn't matter what your role is, where you're located, whatever it is that you do as an educator. I mean, we are seriously like in it for the same reason. We're working together on the same team.
Absolutely. All right. I always do a little final four at the very end at 4 quick questions. You just tell me
Okay.
the first thing that pops into your head. So, favorite ice cream topping?
Okay. Favorite ice cream topping? Oh,
Mm-hmm.
that's an easy one. Rainbow sprinkles.
Rainbow sprinkles, very
Or
good.
rainbow jimmies.
Rainbow gems. Okay. What is a unique talent that
Yeah.
you possess that not a lot of people know about?
I was a majorette, and so like twirling fire baton.
Right on. All right. If you are stranded on a small island, think of Castaway. What are 3 items you want to take with you?
Oh my gosh. Definitely my cell phone. Do I have food there?
We can make it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my cell phone, my guitar, and my family,
Very
I
good.
think. I don't
All
know.
right.
That's a tough one. I mean, because I'm limited to 3.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Now it is week 1. So how are the Steelers going to do this year?
Oh, you're asking the wrong person. No, I'm just kidding. No, I think they're going to do very well. Yeah, I think. I mean,
Very
I
well.
have to say that, right?
Right.
Steelers. I think
Yeah.
I should go back to the third question because the order I gave you those answers in for my island they should be reversed.
There you go.
Just for the record.
Very good.
Family first. No.
Yeah.
Oh, great
Awesome.
questions though.
Yeah, fantastic. Again, I can't thank you enough for coming on here. I have a couple more follow-ups I'm going to ask you off the record. But again, Rachelle, thank you so much for coming on and really being an inspiration to so many educators.
Yeah, well, thank you for having this available and for putting this out there for educators too. So it's great to be here. Thank you again.
Thank you.